At 2:17 a.m., a woman's phone began to ring. Half asleep, she glanced at the screen. Her blood ran cold. The caller ID showed her husband's name. That would have been normal if he hadn't been officially declared dead 3 days earlier. She answered. And what she heard on the other end would reopen a case the police believed was already closed. This is the call that came from a dead phone. In a quiet suburban town where nights were silent and streets emptied early, life followed a predictable rhythm. People locked their doors by 10, streetlights hummed softly. Nothing unexpected ever seemed to happen. 34-year-old Elena Brooks had lived there for most of her adult life. She worked remotely, kept to herself, and shared her home with her husband of 7 years, Daniel Brooks. From the outside, their marriage looked stable. No police calls, no public arguments, no signs of violence. But behind closed doors, the pressure was building. Daniel had been distant for months, late nights, short answers, and a constant sense that something was wrong. Then one evening, after a quiet argument that never turned into a fight, Daniel grabbed his car keys and left the house. He told Elena he just needed a drive. He never came back. Just before dawn, police officers knocked on Elena's door. Daniel's car had been found on a rural back road, wrapped tightly around a tree. The crash was severe. Investigators ruled it a single-vehicle accident. No skid marks. No signs of another car. Daniel Brooks was pronounced dead at the scene. The conclusion was simple. Tragic, but not suspicious. The town moved on quickly. But Elena couldn't. Most true crime cases begin with violence. This one began with grief. Elena buried her husband under gray skies and unanswered questions. Friends told her the same thing again and again. At least there was no suffering. But grief doesn't follow logic. At night, Elena replayed their last conversation. She wondered if she could have stopped him from leaving. And then 3 nights after the funeral, everything changed. Because death, as it turns out, doesn't always end a story. Sometimes it starts one. At exactly 2:17 a.m., Elena's phone vibrated on the nightstand. Half asleep, she assumed it was an emergency alert. Then she saw the screen. Daniel. Her heart began to race. At first, she thought it was a mistake, a software glitch, or maybe an old contact triggering randomly. She didn't answer. The phone stopped ringing. 30 seconds later, it rang again. Same number. Same name. This time, Elena answered.
She didn't speak.
She listened. There was silence. Then a sound. Breathing. Slow, unsteady, human. Elena whispered her husband's name. The line went dead. The calls didn't stop. They came every night, always between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m. Sometimes there was silence, sometimes breathing. Once, faint static, followed by a sound Elena couldn't place. Later, she realized what it was. A car engine, idling. Elena stopped sleeping. She stopped answering. She started recording. When Elena went to the police, officers were skeptical. They checked the call logs. The calls were real. The number belonged to Daniel. But Daniel's phone, according to the original crash report, had been destroyed on impact. Or at least, that's what investigators had assumed. The phone was never actually recovered from the wreckage. That detail had been overlooked. Detectives pulled the phone company records. The device had powered on 2 days after the crash. That shouldn't have been possible. Police decided to trace the next call in real time. They waited. At 2:19 a.m., Elena's phone rang. Signal detected. The source wasn't moving. It was coming from the edge of town, near an abandoned industrial zone that had been empty for years. An old auto repair warehouse sat at the center of the signal. Officers moved in quietly. No lights, no vehicles, no signs of life, until they stepped inside. The warehouse was empty, except for one corner. There sat a folding chair, a car battery, a charging cable, and on the floor, Daniel's phone, cracked, dirty, still powered on. But Daniel was nowhere to be found. As officers secured the device, it rang again. This time, Elena didn't answer. The call went to voicemail. What it recorded changed the entire case. A man's voice, shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just needed time." Then a sound. Metal scraping across concrete. And finally a whisper. "I'm not supposed to be dead." Investigators reopened everything. Financial records revealed secrets Daniel had hidden for years. Massive debt. A second bank account. Multiple insurance policies taken out shortly before the crash. The accident wasn't an accident. It was staged. Daniel had planned to disappear, fake his death, start over. Security footage from a gas station near the crash site showed something chilling. Daniel's car pulling in late at night, and Daniel himself stepping out, injured, bleeding, but alive. He had survived the crash, but he couldn't leave immediately. The calls weren't meant to haunt Elena. They were mistakes, moments of weakness, a man trying to let go and failing. Daniel Brooks was arrested 2 states away, living under a false identity. He was charged with insurance fraud, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. When asked about the calls, he said only one thing: "I just wanted to hear her voice one last time." Elena moved away. She changed her number, but she says there's something she'll never forget. Sometimes at 2:17 a.m., her phone still lights up. Not with a call, but with the memory of one. If your phone rang tonight and the caller was someone who shouldn't exist, would you answer? Tell us in the comments. This was Criminalia Cases, and this case was never really over.